Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Today we're going to talk about Star Trek the Motion Picture. Released in 1979, directed by Robert Wise, and written by Harold Livingston with a story from Alan Dean Foster. Starring William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, James Doohan, George Takei, Walter Koenig, Nichelle Nichols, Majel Barrett, I'm assuming is how you say her name, Stephen Collins, Grace Lee Whitney, Persis Kimbata. Is that how you... that's
the...
educated guess? That's Ilea.
Okay. Spoiler alert.
Well, I don't know how much of a spoiler it is to say somebody played this character.
No, I was what I was about to say.
Oh, what you were about to say was a spoiler alert. Well,
yeah.
We can go ahead and say, we typically talk about the entire film, so if you haven't seen Star Trek the Motion Picture,
exactly.
We will probably ruin it for you.
I was going to say the android girl.
Oh, yes. That would be a little bit of a spoiler, I suppose. Yeah. She doesn't start off as an android.
Exactly. But that's why it's a spoiler.
Right. We obviously, the reason we decided to choose this film is because Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock himself, just recently passed away on February 27th, which was actually the day we were going to record this, and then we just had some issues. So we apologize for the lateness of this episode, but better late than never, I think.
I agree.
So, John, do you have a memory of seeing this movie for the first time?
No.
Okay.
And that is because I saw it for the first time probably last year.
Oh, okay. I saw this film, I saw this film late. I saw it, we've said this before. You and I think, both grew up Star Wars fans rather than Star Trek fans. And so I didn't get into Star Trek until I was an adult. And I watched this film before the Abrams Star Trek came out. So I want to say it was probably around 2007, 2008.
Did you know about the reboot?
I did. I think the movie was close to coming out. So it might have been, that's why I think it was probably 2008.
Uh-huh. That's probably why you watched them.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, yes and no. I got into Star Trek before the reboot, like before the trailers or anything of the reboot was coming out. I think it was announced that they were going to reboot the Star Trek movies pretty early before they got into even I think before Abrams was announced that he was attached to it and everything.
Okay.
So I think I knew that there was going to be a new one coming out, but I got into the well, now I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was going to say I got into the TV show first, but I don't think I did. I think my brother and I just watched all the movies first, and then that's what got me into the TV show.
The 60s one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
nice.
It could be because there was the reboot. So I could be wrong. I'm having a hard time remembering, but either way, I think I definitely watched all of these before the new one came out. And so the first time I saw this was probably around 2008.
Okay. I didn't start getting into Star Trek until probably... What year was Into Darkness?
That was just recently. I want to say that was 2000... No, it was 2013.
13, yeah. That's when I started watching Star Trek, was 2013. Probably because of Into Darkness, but I didn't know it. Well, I was excited to see it because I had seen the Abrams movie, which I had never... I take that back. As a kid, my dad and I found some Star Trek VHS tapes at a library.
Okay.
And we checked out maybe the first 3 or 4 VHS tapes. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't remember them. And anyway, it was Star Trek's anniversary. What number would it be? Would it have been?
Well, their 50th anniversary is going to be next year, so it was probably in 2013 or before that.
It would have been 13 because I remember they had it was probably just his birthday or something.
That could be.
And because they had on Google, if you remember when they did the Star Trek thing.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And that's when I was like, you know what? I want to watch that. And pulled it up. It was on Netflix. Started watching it. And I have a big place for the original series.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually waited to watch the motion picture until after I finished the entire series. Mm-hmm. The thing about the series is the first 2 seasons are good, especially the first one. And it takes a couple episodes to really start to get the hang of things.
Mm-hmm.
Season 2 is pretty good too, and then season 3 is it's a bit of a mess, in my opinion. So if you don't watch it in order and you see episodes that are in season 3,
right,
that's unfortunate.
I have still not finished the original series. I'm actually a little more than halfway through season 2. And part of that is just because there's just so much TV to watch that every now and again I'll pop on Star Trek, and the original series episodes are 50-something minutes, I think, a piece.
They are.
And so
they are.
They feel a little long.
It's crazy that...
Yeah.
Because I didn't know they had shows that long back then.
Yeah. Hour-long shows, I guess, yeah. So I still haven't finished it. So I haven't gotten to season 3 yet, but I'm a little nervous about it, because you've told me that before, that season 3 is a little messy. But you just reminded me.
There's a couple good episodes in it, so...
Okay. Well, I'm sure. I mean, it's Star Trek. I'm sure I still enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. You just watch it so you can say you finished it, basically.
I know. I should just marathon it or something. But I also watch. I know you didn't start watching Next Generation until you finished the original series, and I'm like in season 3 or 4 of Next Generation. So
I think I'm in 5, actually.
Yeah, I think you've passed me, because you watch them a little more often than I do.
Yeah, it used to be, there was a period there every night before I'd go to bed, I would just put on The Next Generation.
An episode.
Yeah.
And that's what I should do, but I don't know.
The Next Generation is amazing. When I was watching the original series and knew that I would move on to The Next Generation, I did not know if I would be able to like another show more than the original. But it's totally different. They're 2 different things. Yeah,
and I wouldn't be surprised if that's how Star Trek fans of the original series felt when The Next Generation was about to air in '87, I think it was. I wonder if they were like, a new Star Trek show with people who aren't Captain Kirk and things. Right. But no, it's a different. No,
I personally think that the first season of The Next Generation it kind of has a original series feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way it's directed and everything, but later on it kind of gets its own, style going.
Right. As a kid, I was never a fan of. I mean, I don't think I saw any original series Star Trek as a kid, but I did watch. I wouldn't watch them, but they'd be on TV. I'd be flipping channels, and I'd see Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I'd watch a couple minutes of it. And especially if you don't come in from the beginning, you don't know what they're doing. And I just was always kind of bored by it. There wasn't enough action in it, I guess, for me as a kid. Mm-hmm. But I do remember going to see, and I don't remember why. Maybe they were, maybe my next door neighbors were like babysitting us or something. I don't know. But I did go see Star Trek First Contact in the theater with my neighbors. They were going to see it, and I went, and maybe it was just because they were going to see a movie I wanted to go, but that was probably the first Star Trek movie I saw, was Star Trek First Contact, and that's actually a really good movie. And I remember liking it when I was a kid, but I just never really bothered to watch it again until I did this marathon of Star Trek films, starting with the motion picture. Yeah. Have you seen that one yet? Have you seen any of the Next Generation movies yet?
The only one I saw was the crossover, Generations. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I saw that. I've kind of been waiting to finish The Next Generation to watch the first movie, because I think, didn't it come out after the series ended?
I think so.
Yeah. So
the movie, I mean, it was 7 so 87 to 94, is that when the show was on?
I don't remember when it ended. It was 7 seasons, I think.
So 87 to 93 or 87 to 94, something like that. I know Generations was 1994. So First Contact was probably like 96.
Okay.
So yeah, it was after the show was over.
That's apparently a really good one.
It is. First Contact I really like. That's probably, in my opinion, the best Next Generation movie.
I think that's pretty much the consensus.
Yeah.
Now, that's what's going to be interesting talking about this movie, is because a lot of people don't like this movie.
Yeah, there's that consensus that the odd number Star Treks are bad and the even number Star Treks are good.
Which is crazy because I'm going to just go ahead and say this. I am the opposite of that.
I know, which is you really should rewatch them all because that doesn't make any sense to me that you're the opposite. I don't hate this movie. This Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I think, is actually a good movie. I just think that it needs to be tightened up because
sure,
my beef, like watching it again, I remember thinking this the first time I watched it. The first half of this movie I really, really enjoy, and then the second half of this movie feels really slow. And I think that's my problem with it. Is there's almost too much. There's almost too much of the crew looking at the view screen, yeah, and just looking at what's outside, basically,
right?
And it just goes on a little too long.
It does, and I agree. This was my second time watching it, and I picked up on that much more this time.
Mm-hmm.
I think my excitement about just being able to see. Now, you know what? This wasn't the first Star Trek movie I watched, or was it? Gosh, I can't remember now. I can't remember if I saw Wrath of Khan first.
Our memories are failing us.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. But the excitement of being able to see the transition from the show to, what was it, 6 years after they got canceled? Because it got canceled in 70... No, wait.
It started in 66. So the third season would have been in 69, maybe 70. Right?
I thought it started in 67. Was it 66?
I think it was 66 because I thought that's why next year was the 50th anniversary. I'm looking right now. 66. According to IMDb, it's 66.
There's a lot of Star Trek fans cursing me out right now.
Yeah, hating us. 66 to 69. So the movie actually came out 10 years after the show was canceled.
Gotcha. Well, there you go.
And I really think that... Because I know, from what I've read, Gene Roddenberry was trying really hard to make a Star Trek movie, but was having trouble. Uh-huh. And then Star Wars came out in 1977, Absolutely. And suddenly it did really well. And people were like, studios were like, well, we need to get a sci-fi property off the ground. And Gene Roddenberry was like, well, I've got one for you. And they were like, good call. So... I think if it wasn't for the popularity of Star Wars, this movie probably would have never happened.
Or at least not for a while.
Not for a while. Yeah, maybe not in 1979. It might have been a little later. But I think the popularity of Star Wars definitely helped get Star Trek, the motion picture.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm pretty sure that's why it was made. And I think that was probably why a lot of these shots are done so long. Is because they're trying to wow the audience with the visual effects. That's one of the things Star Wars was praised for.
Right.
And the visuals, well, they've probably been updated from what I watched.
Don't know.
I don't either. They looked decent. Like, to think that was 79, I doubt it looked like that. But
I watched this on Netflix, but I also have it on DVD. And Netflix... I found out is the theatrical version because the DVD I have is the director's cut. And the only reason I know that Netflix played the theatrical version, and I honestly couldn't tell any difference between the two, is because there's one line in it where I'm going to pull this up so that I can quote it correctly. But there's a line when they're meeting when he's addressing the whole crew about what's going on, and they get that message from. It's like Epsilon 4 or whatever.
You talking about the other Starfleet ship?
Yeah, that gets evaporated on the view screen, Epsilon 9. So, yeah.
By the way, when that happened, I wanted to know who was providing the image back to Starfleet that...
I wrote that same note. Well, they always go to... so he's getting that message from them, and then they start having trouble, and Kirk goes... I think he says external view, and it shows an outside shot of the spaceship. I wrote that down a note. I said, how does external view work? I was like, are there just cameras floating around in like all parts of space so that they could just get external views of spaceships? Because I could be wrong, because I watched this like 2 weeks ago when we were supposed to originally do this. Once the spaceship gets like evaporated, external view stays around, right? Like the feed doesn't cut out, does it?
No.
Or does it?
No, it doesn't.
No, it stays around.
Well, that's a good question. Actually,
I think it stays around, which means that floating camera or whatever is still there.
I'm wondering if there was maybe a delay. Maybe it cuts out.
There could be.
Yeah, but
anyway, the reason I know that this was the theatrical version is because during that scene when Epsilon 9 is talking about V'ger, I'm going to just quote this off IMDb. Commander Branch mentions that the size of V'ger Cloud is over 82 AUs in diameter. Mm-hmm. In the director's cut, they change it to over 2 AUs in diameter. AU is short for astronomical unit. Apparently, an astronomical unit is the distance between the sun and Earth. So the distance between Earth and the sun is 1 AU. Mm-hmm. So our solar system, apparently, is between 30 and 40 AUs. So saying that V'ger was 82 AUs was making it like twice as big as our solar system. And I guess somebody somewhere was like, that's a little ridiculous. And so they changed it for the director's cut to 2 AUs in diameter. But if you watch it on Netflix, he says over 82 AUs in diameter. So I'm pretty sure Netflix has the theatrical version on Netflix. Now, whether or not it's the HD version, so I don't know if they've done any
that's what I'm saying
on the visual
because
effects.
They did that with the original show.
Right. Yeah, and I hate that. I watch Star Trek on Netflix. I have the original series on DVD, but I really would prefer to just have the original special effects for the TV show, because I feel like it's like almost like a time capsule type thing. You know, I don't really. It's kind of the same thing with Star Wars, you know, and how George Lucas goes and updates Star Wars visual effects. I'd rather just watch the theatrical version. You know.
Fair enough.
That's just me, I guess. But
we'll see. That was the first time I'd ever seen them. Was
on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the special effects from the old TV show are cheesy. And
exactly.
So
I've seen YouTube videos of it. So
yeah. So I mean, I watch on Netflix because I know the ones I own at least have the. Like, if you were to buy Star Trek the series on Blu-ray, they would have those updated effects,
right?
Which is kind of a bummer. But at least the DVDs still have the original effects.
Nice.
So I tried to go into watching this movie as if I had never seen any of the other Star Trek movies, and as if I was watching it in the theater for the first time, and the only Star Trek I had seen was the original series.
Okay.
And going into it with that mindset, I think, does give me a little bit more of an appreciation for it. I do still feel like it's really slow in parts, and it's my favorite part of the movie by far, is when Kirk and Scotty are shuttling over to the Enterprise, and you get those. The scene kind of goes on maybe a little too long, but I think for fans of the show, getting to see the Enterprise from outside like that, the updated Enterprise with better visual effects and everything.
And it's that shot where you see Kirk looking, and it doesn't show you, and you just see like the eyes glistening.
Yeah.
And then it shows you the top of the Enterprise with the music just blaring.
Yeah.
And it's pretty nice.
Which has now become the Next Generation music. But that theme is really, really great. And that whole revealing of the Enterprise, I think you see like little shuttle like crafts or people maybe even. I think you always see like a guy floating around. Like I'm assuming he's like a worker, like working on the ship or something. That whole sequence is by far my favorite sequence in the whole film. Like, and that really kind of, especially if I can stay in that mindset of I've never seen any other Star Trek movies, and this is the first time I'm really getting a really great look at the Enterprise. Especially if you think about the special effects from the original series, which you've seen, like you said, YouTube videos of, which was like practically on a string, you know?
Yeah.
This would like be a Star Trek fan's dream come true, you know, getting to see the Enterprise for the first time, and it looks so real. And, or even if it's just a sci-fi person, I think, you know, getting to see that ship, I think.
Right. Or people that love starships in general. That's
right.
It's like showing off a sports car.
Right, and I think they did a great job with that sequence, and I love it, and I really like in the beginning of the film, because as far as I know, you don't really see Starfleet in the original series. I haven't seen season 3, so I don't know, but getting to see Starfleet in San Francisco in the very beginning of the movie, I thought was really cool.
Didn't they show Starfleet with the episode with
Pike?
Yes,
maybe. Because that's when you were saying that, I was like, well, maybe there is one with Pike.
Yeah.
And if there is, I apologize, Star Wars or Star Trek fans. Ooh, I almost messed that up. Yeah, now they're just turning us off. Now they just can't even handle it anymore. So anyway, yeah. So I liked seeing Starfleet in the beginning. You know, having Captain Kirk as Admiral Kirk now is kind of also cool. Seeing shaggy-haired Spock right in the beginning of the film when he's on Vulcan doing the Kolinar or whatever it's called ceremony. Interesting thing about that, if IMDb is correct, is that scene was originally filmed in English, and they overdubbed it in Vulcan. And James Doohan, who played Scotty, came up with the Vulcan language.
Interesting.
He also apparently came up with the Klingon language for the beginning of the film as well.
Nice.
And I read something about how I think there are Star Trek fans out there who believe this theory that Klingons would undergo surgery to get rid of their ridges when they were going to be having to deal with like humans and things like that, which is why the Klingons from the original series look like humans. They don't have the forehead ridge. Okay. I don't know if I believe, I don't know if I want to go with that theory because I don't really see Klingons doing that.
No.
But I thought that was interesting. I read that too.
I'm going to go with they just hadn't developed the look for the Klingons and they later updated them.
Right, exactly. Which is not as much fun, I guess, but
that's okay. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Search for Spock. That was the first time you see the Klingons look like that, right?
Well, no, I think they look like that in the beginning of this film, don't they? Don't they have the ridged foreheads in the beginning of this film? You only see the Klingons for a minute in this film, and it's right before V'ger blows them up, or evaporates them, or whatever you want to call them.
I can't remember. I watched the beginning.
I'm pretty sure they look that way.
Okay.
And I don't recall. It's been a while since I've seen Wrath of Khan. I don't recall if there's any Klingons in Wrath of Khan. So then Search for Spock, has Christopher Lloyd as the Klingon or the Klingon bad guy, and they definitely do have the ridged foreheads and everything in that one.
I love when Spock finally gets on the Enterprise. Bones' reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was like really happy to see him.
Yeah, him and Dr. Chapel, is it? Or is it Janice Rand? One of the two comes up to meet him. I think it's Dr. Chapel. Comes up to him and Dr. Chapel come up and they're like, Spock! And he just stares at them.
He just stares at him.
Apparently, great. Leonard Nimoy really didn't want to do this film. And there was a screenplay was written or whatever without him. Because I guess he had gotten into a little bit of a, argument, or there was some sort of heat between him and Gene Roddenberry, I guess.
Really?
But I also think that he just was trying to distance himself from Spock. I guess he hadn't quite accepted how big of a thing it was.
Which is interesting because he later probably did more than any of them.
Right, yeah. And so I don't know which is true. I don't know if it was because there was a beef between him and Gene Roddenberry or if it was because he was trying to put Star Trek behind him or what. But I also know that's why, spoiler alert for Wrath of Khan, that's why I'm giving the people enough time to stop their podcast device if they want to not be spoiled for Wrath of Khan. That's why Spock dies at the end of Wrath of Khan. Because
I hope they had enough time to register that.
I know, right? Because he wanted to be done with it. I guess he reluctantly agreed to do this movie, I guess. Mm-hmm. Does Wrath of Khan, but he's like, I'm only going to do Wrath of Khan if you kill Spock at the end. And so they do that, and then, of course, they want to do a third one. And so the only reason he agreed to do the third one was if they let him direct it. And I think by that point, he was maybe warming up to it a little more, because then he did the fourth one and directed that one too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and William Shatner did the fifth one, right?
Right. William Shatner did the fifth one, and then the sixth one, I can't remember who directed the sixth one, and that's the last one with Spock. Well, unless you count Abrams, of course, and stuff.
Right.
Because Spock wasn't in Generations.
Which we were originally going to do that one.
Right.
But I think it made more sense to do this one because Leonard Nimoy's in it way more.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a tribute to Leonard Nimoy, so.
The only other note that I wrote actually has to do with the scene where the Enterprise is being revealed. I wrote that I really thought it was kind of funny and amusing, I guess, that Scotty is complaining so much about how he's not going to be able to get the ship ready in 12 hours. There's just no way it's going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. He keeps complaining. And then Kirk reveals that he's going to be the captain, and he's like, she'll be ready. He immediately changes his tune. And I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. When they finally get there, I find it very odd. This is the first time I've ever heard Kirk say, don't go into defensive mode because it could appear to be hostile.
Right.
Which doesn't make any sense. It basically says, leave yourself as a sitting duck and hope they don't fire. Because if we show that we're trying to defend ourselves, they could get angry about it.
They will kill us. Yeah. They might kill us anyway, but we don't want them to think they have to kill us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
So after that, they start going into the cloud, and it's I timed this. I actually went back and looked. I didn't time it at first. I watched it, and I was like, that was probably about a 10-minute long sequence of them flying into the cloud and just showing those weird
images.
Yeah. And
I'm telling you, that's where the movie really slows down, I think.
I went back and looked. It was right under 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a little too long.
Now you are you remember Jerry with Matt Damon?
Yes.
I think
the 12-minute sunrise.
Yes, I think they're kind of maybe I'm trying to give them credit where it's not deserved. But I think they're trying to show how big this cloud is. And you're on the Enterprise, literally, and it probably took longer than 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I think that's kind of the effect they were going for. But yes, it's hard. It gets hard to sit through because
it does, and
they have a couple lines in it, but it really is like 6 or 7 lines where they're just like.
They're just staring, at the view screen, and looking at what they see, and it is, I'll give you that it's, maybe back in '79 it would have been a little more interesting to see because visual effects were kind of new and everything, or those types of visual effects.
It's very pretty imagery, but it's like
right. But you get how big it is from those external shots where you see this giant vessel, I guess you want to call it, and you see the Enterprise flying through, and the Enterprise is tiny.
Yeah.
And we all know how huge the Enterprise is. And so to see this tiny little ship flying through this giant vessel, or whatever you want to call it, or cloud, or whatever, seeing just how small the Enterprise looks compared to it, that right there tells us all we need to know about how giant this thing is.
Yeah.
So, I think they could have shortened that up a little bit. The movie's like 2 hours and 13 minutes or something like that. And I think you could have made it 2 hours, if not maybe a tiny bit shorter.
I would say there's so many external shots.
Yeah.
That it could. I'd say half the movie is possibly external shots, honestly. It's pretty crazy. And, the way they're all pretty long, but you can get through most of them. If you're a fan of the show, that's one thing I'll say right now is if someone were to ask me, I've never seen Star Trek, should I start with the motion picture? No.
Most people would say no. Most people would say Wrath of Khan.
I would say first watch the series.
Right.
If you... And then... That's the thing. We'll definitely have a podcast on Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. It's tough because, I know if someone were to come up to me and be like, I've heard Star Trek is really good. I've never really watched it. I want to watch Star Trek and get into it. What should I start with? There's a part of me that would say, I really want to tell you to start with the original series, but I know that the original series is from the 60s and can be a bit cheesy.
Yes, that's the problem.
And so I would tell people, that's how I guess that's how I'd have to recommend it. I'd say start with the original series, but just know that the original series was from the 60s. It has it reminds me a lot of the Batman series, which was also from the 60s. There's purple walls and all that stuff,
Right.
I guess it was the beginning of, maybe somewhat near the beginning of color TV, and so they were trying to throw as much color in it as they could. But honestly, I think I'd probably say, if you can't handle the cheesiness of the 60s, go with Star Trek The Next Generation and watch that show.
Absolutely.
To get into it.
Yeah, you have to there's a specific perception that you have to have when you're watching the original. You have to kind of get what Star Trek was at the time.
Right.
And almost become a 60s audience to really enjoy it.
Yeah. And I do love it. I definitely have, they are two different animals, the Next Generation show and the original show, but I love them both, equally, I suppose.
I actually think I would say the Next Generation's probably a little better, which I never thought I'd say, a year ago.
Right, and that you've gotten farther into Next Generation too. So maybe by the time I finish Next Generation, I might be in the same boat.
I think I felt like that before season 4.
Mm.
Did you get to the Borg episode yet?
I don't know. I can actually tell you where I am. Real quick, while I'm looking this up, this motion picture was directed by Robert Wise, who directed The Sound of Music, and he also co-directed West Side Story, and he also directed the original Day the Earth Stood Still. So, very good resume the guy's got, I guess.
I haven't seen the last 2 of those movies. I have not seen West Side Story.
I just recently watched West Side Story not too long ago. I'm still in season 3, so you're way ahead of me. I am so I don't think I've gotten to the Borg yet. There was one episode in season 2 that dealt with the Borg, I think, but it didn't, but not really. But I could be wrong.
When you watch, I'll go ahead and tell you where it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last episode of season 3.
Oh, okay. Best of Both Worlds, Part 1.
And when you watch that episode, put yourself in I'm watching this when it was coming out, so no one knows what's going to happen kind of thing.
Right.
Just kind of think like that.
Yeah, okay.
And it's pretty jaw-dropping.
Will do. I really don't have a whole lot to say about this film. I do like.
Well, I wanted to talk about Will. What's his last name? The commander.
Decker?
Yeah, Will Decker. Yeah,
played by Stephen Collins.
The end of the movie was pretty bad, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. What I liked about the end, which I suppose could be considered maybe the third act, is when you find out who V'ger is. Which is V'ger, and it gets a little complicated. V'ger is basically Voyager 6, I think.
Right. I actually like that part.
I do too. I like that it's Voyager 6, but it was discovered. Voyager 6 was it went through a black hole or something and was discovered by an alien race that was all machines who gave it this vessel or something to finish its purpose or whatever, and then because it ate up all this information, it gained consciousness or something. At least that's how I took it. I could be wrong.
I missed the alien vessel part.
Decker tells Kirk that Voyager 6 disappeared through a black hole. Kirk says that it must have emerged on the far side of the galaxy and got caught on the machine planet's gravity. So yeah, it's like there is a machine planet who gave it the vessel, basically.
Yeah.
The planet's inhabitants found the probe to be one of their own kind, primitive yet kindred. I'm reading this off IMDb, by the way. They discovered the probe's 20th century programming, which was to collect data and return that information to its creator. The machines interpreted that instruction literally and constructed the entire vessel so that Voyager could fulfill its programming.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Kirk says that on its journey back, it amassed so much knowledge that it gained its own consciousness.
Yeah.
So it was given that vessel by a machine-like planet race of beings or whatever.
I was thinking that it had just gone to a place, not necessarily that was inhabited, but had just found certain information that kind of gave it the answers to the universe.
Uh-huh.
But there you go.
Right. So I like that whole aspect. I like that V'ger is the Voyager 6 that was from the 20th century and everything. I thought that was really neat.
It's kind of the... I can't think of a movie. I don't know about the concept in, any novels that have been written before, like in sci-fi, but of a robot becoming self-aware.
I don't know.
A few years later, Terminator comes out. That's really the one everyone thinks about.
Sure.
But V'ger...
Harlan Ellison, there's some issues with Terminator. When Terminator came out, the author, Harlan Ellison, sued James Cameron because he wrote, I think it's 1 or 2 different episodes of The Outer Limits that were very similar to the Terminator.
Gotcha.
And so if you watch the Terminator now, I guess they settled out of court. And if you watch the Terminator now, like if you buy the Blu-ray or the DVD now, at the end of the movie it says acknowledgement to Harlan Ellison or whatever, which from what I understand, James Cameron doesn't agree with that acknowledgement. It's one of those things where, he didn't know about Harlan Ellison's Outer Limit episode or whatever. It was just a coincidence. But they, like I said, they settled out of court, and so now the movie has that acknowledgement in the end credits. So I do think there was some... I don't know when those Outer Limits episodes aired, but, there is some...
I think, the Outer Limits were probably around the time the original series was on.
Right, so...
Maybe even the 50s.
I think that stuff had been around for a little bit.
Yeah. But not necessarily in a... Well, yeah. Fair enough.
That's an interesting question, though. I wonder what the first instance of artificial intelligence, like true artificial intelligence in popular culture was, I'd have to look that up. I wonder if it's probably a lot earlier than we realize,
Right.
It's probably from some novel.
You've got the movie Metropolis, which is about robots. That's technically artificial intelligence. But the question of, when did people think about it being able to make its own decisions and
right,
decide that human beings were...
And start questioning things.
Yeah. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I liked that part a lot. What I was talking about was Will Decker. And
when he puts in the last bit of the code manually.
I don't like that.
Yeah, and I don't understand that either. I don't really exactly know what's happening. Is he getting absorbed into V'ger or something? Or
I take that back. I do like that part because, yes, basically they merge however they do it, and that's where I kind of got this Voyager has gathered all this information that it technically maybe knows how to do things like that, where it could just create whatever, and it basically evolved into another living being.
Right.
But it was it was just the performance that I didn't like how he was like, I want this as much as you wanted the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. And he was just kind of hokey.
Do you think that so Ilea, when V'ger was probing the Enterprise, it basically kidnapped Ilea, killed her, and then created
they kind
a probe.
Of tried to dance around that. It was like she's in there, but she's not.
Right. So do you think because of that, that's why Decker wanted it so badly, because he would be reunited with Ilea that way?
I was thinking that, but even that's kind of, I don't know. It's like,
because it was pretty clear from the movie that he loves Ilea. You know, they had this previous relationship and everything.
Right.
That's another question I have. I don't think I've ever come across in the original series any Deltans. Were there Deltans in like the third season of the original series that you recall?
I don't remember.
So I think the Deltan race was made for this movie, which is what Ilea was. She was a Deltan. So yeah. So, but that's my guess. That's why I think Decker wanted it so badly, was because he assumed that Ilea was still in there somewhere, and that he would be reunited with Ilea.
Yeah.
Whatever. One of my nitpicky complaints about this film is the costumes. I really like the, and granted it was probably because of color TV, you know, back in the 60s, but I really liked the uniforms of the original series. The gold for the, you know, kind of command crew, the blue for the science, and the red for engineering and stuff. And they, you know, they do that. They use that in the Abrams movies and stuff. They've got those kind of classic costumes, updated a little bit, obviously, but they threw that out of the window for this film. And I think,
and my theory on that is they were trying to separate themselves from they're like, you're at a motion picture.
Sure, and it's supposed to be it's not the same Enterprise. It's a revamped Enterprise, so it's supposed to be a little bit later. But they were just all gray, and it was just kind of a boring thing to look at. Mm-hmm. They were also kind of like onesies.
Right. I think I noticed.
I read that the buckle on it is actually supposed to be like a medical reader or whatever. It's supposed to like be some sort of give your vitals, I guess, for the medical crew or something. That's what I read. They never talk about it in the movie, so I don't know if that's true, but those weird buckles on the right on their waist, that's apparently what it is. It's like some medical reader thing.
There was a shot where I was looking at Decker, and don't the onesies go over the shoes on him?
I think they might. Yeah, I think that sounds
kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're just weird. I do like the gray and white Admiral uniforms, which they do still use in the Abrams film, or at least in the first movie. Mm-hmm. When you see Pike at the end of Abrams' film and he's in the wheelchair, he's wearing a suit that's very similar to what Kirk wears in the beginning of this film.
Oh, okay.
The gray and white Admiral suit. So I do kind of like that. But apparently the cast didn't like the costumes either. Apparently they're really hard to get in and out of. And so that's why they're not wearing those in Wrath of Khan. They're wearing those they almost look like sweaters in Wrath of Khan. But
oh yeah, that's right.
But I like those red costumes a little better in Wrath of Khan than these gray ones in the motion picture. And that's just a nitpicky thing.
I like how when Will died, and they were talking about it, they were like, they weren't sad about his death or anything. They're just like, it was like a well done moment. They're like, well,
right. Well, we saved
did
the
it again.
Go crew. Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, I love the music in it, and obviously, you know, Gene Roddenberry, I think, loved the music in it because he used it for Next Generation. It's a little sped up for Next Generation, but the theme is really, really good.
Yeah, I wonder if the fans were kind of mad about that when this thing comes on and they don't get to hear the series theme that they came.
There's a little bit of the series music in the movie.
Yes, there is. That's true.
Because I remember there's like a scene where Kirk is doing his star log, you know, and you hear a little bit of it in the background. But you're right, the theme. I don't know. I wonder if I would have been a little disappointed seeing the movie in 1979 and expecting to hear da da, and it's the new theme. Yeah. I'd have been like, oh. But I think the theme probably would have grown on me. You know, well, because it's so good.
It is so great. So there you go. That's what I was going to say about the Next Generation earlier. Was I never watched the show as a kid.
Yeah.
But I remembered seeing. I just knew about Star Trek.
Right.
I recognized, Worf.
Yeah.
And what's his name?
Data.
Data. Data. I don't know if I recognized so much. It was. Oh gosh, I can't believe this.
Geordi?
Yes, Geordi. I recognized Geordi. I knew who those characters were and that they were from Star Trek. I knew about the pins and the suits and everything.
I don't know if I knew about the communicator badges, but I definitely would recognize Worf and Geordi, like you said, because of the Klingon, obviously. But Geordi, I remember, not even having really watched the show. I remember my sister had those headbands, and I remember you couldn't really wear them like that because they'd poke your eyes. But I remember putting one over my eyes one time, and I was like, I'm that guy from Star Trek.
Right.
And but it's like, we never watched it. Yeah, it's just it was such a big part of pop culture, I guess, back then.
Absolutely.
Especially in the early 90s.
And the theme, that was the other thing I was going to say. I knew the theme. Before I started watching Next Generation, I knew the theme. I don't know how I knew it, and I've known it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time I watched this movie, I went, oh, wow, they used this music for the movie. But it's the same way for me, because I don't think I had really started watching Next Generation seriously yet. But I know there must have been some show I watched after Next Generation came on TV or something, and I just heard the music at the end credits or something.
Yeah.
But I know, I knew that music too, without really having watched the show.
Which is really cool. It's really cool.
I'll probably think of something else after we stop recording,
right,
but there's not much else I can really
do.
think of to say about the motion picture. We didn't talk really about Spock as much as I expected to with Leonard Nimoy, but let's go ahead and just rate it. What would you rate this film?
I haven't even thought about this.
I haven't either, actually. So,
give me a second to calculate.
I'll go ahead and give you mine while you're thinking.
Okay.
I think my grade has gone up. If I hadn't rewatched it, I think I probably would have given it somewhere around a C or something like that. But I think because putting myself in the shoes of, trying to think that there's no other Star Trek films and really kind of trying to put myself in the mindset of going to see this in the theater in 1979, being a fan of the show, I really think they did a decent job of creating a movie based on the show. And so it has its problems, but overall I think I would have probably left the theater enjoying it. So I'm going to give it I'm actually going to give it a B-.
Okay. I'm going to give it... Mine's gone down a little bit.
Okay.
I did not... I still enjoyed it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's... I used to say it was probably my top 2 favorites because it was so much like the original show.
Uh-huh.
Anyway. I'm going to say 3.5 stars. I think
Very
when
nice.
I first watched it, I might have given it 4.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it was a little bit harder, like I said, this time to go through those, since I knew everything that was going to happen.
Right. Yeah, those scenes.
The shots.
Yeah, and I honestly, if I were to sit down and rewatch it again today, since I just watched it a couple weeks ago, I'd probably find myself fast forwarding through a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Those scenes where they're just flying through the vessel and looking. They're so long and they're so slow.
Yeah. And once again, if you have not seen Star Trek, I would not recommend starting with this one.
Right. I don't think I would either. Because then I think you would just think they're all boring.
Yeah, exactly. And in a way they are.
Right.
They're really like space. Well, I used to say, I don't believe it anymore, but I used to say Star Trek was like space soap operas. And I didn't necessarily mean that like as an insult.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, in a way they kind of there's much more story to them, not as much action.
Right. There's not... Star Wars had the, lightsaber battles, and they had the, the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter battles, and stuff like that. There was these cool action scenes, whereas in Star Trek, it's a lot more like problem-solving.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more, politics in it and things like that, which doesn't sound very exciting, but it really works in the world of Star Trek.
Yeah. Obviously. It's huge to this day.
Yeah.
So,
right. So
I have 2 That's the other thing that's interesting. Like I said, I've only been a fan of Star Trek for a couple years now. I have a Star Trek shirt, the one that you're actually wearing right now.
Very appropriate.
Yeah. I have some Star Trek mugs that I frequently rotate through.
Very nice.
I got them for beer mugs, but I just use them.
Just drink whatever out of them now.
What else do I have? I have, well, that was beforehand. The Burger King cups.
Yep, I still have those.
I
don't ever use them because I don't want them to break. So they're just in the box.
Yeah.
It's kind of pointless. But.
Some of mine have broken. I thought I had more Star Trek stuff than that, but I guess I don't.
I don't have as much stuff as as a lot of people do. I have the original series on DVD. I have the first 3 seasons of Next Generation on DVD. I'd like to get the rest of them. I think the ones I bought, I think, are going out of print. So if I don't buy them soon, I think they're going to be really hard to find because I think they're repackaging them, or they did repackage them. I have the Star Trek original series animated series that came on in the...
I've only watched the first episode of that.
Early 70s. It's okay. It's not, it's whatever.
It was basically...
You can tell that
them saying, we canceled the show, but we'll give you this.
Right.
Because it's still
a little weird because it's 30-minute episodes, so they're only like 20-something minutes without commercials, obviously. Uh-huh. But it is interesting because they can add a few characters into the show that they obviously couldn't for the live action. So there's like a feline type Starfleet officer that's part of the crew. She looks like a cat, she has a tail and everything. So that was something they couldn't do in the live action. So there's a few more like kind of alien species that they couldn't really do with practical effects, I guess, back then. So that's kind of the only, I guess, the coolest aspect of the animated
How involved was Gene Roddenberry with that?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not entirely sure. But I know it's the original cast does the voices for it. It's Shatner and Nimoy and DeForest Kelley and all that. So.
I used to think that William Shatner was pretty egotistical, which a lot of people do still.
Right.
But I changed my mind when I watched The Captains.
Yeah, I tried to watch that, and I remember I couldn't get into it for whatever reason at that moment. But I need to try to watch it again.
And I still haven't even seen Deep Space Nine or
Voyager
or the Enterprise.
Right.
But it was still fun to watch those captains get interviewed and I was gonna say sorry. I just saw like I felt like I saw William Shatner seems like a good guy.
Mm-hmm. He got a lot of I don't know, heat, if you will, for he was in Florida or something when Leonard Nimoy died, and he had already agreed to do a charity fundraiser for the Red Cross or something on the day that Nimoy was going to have his funeral, and so he was tweeting about how he couldn't make it back in time for the funeral, and he was really upset about it. And I noticed that because he actually retweeted it. There was a newspaper headline. It was one of those like tabloid things, like National Enquirer or something. It might have been The Sun or something. But it said Captain Jerk, and it said won't come. Like Shatner refuses to go to Nimoy's funeral or something like that. And so he was like, "Let's talk about this." And even people on Twitter were kind of giving him a hard time. They were like, "Surely you can get a plane back in time." And he was like, he's like, "I can't." I don't know how much money Shatner has, but he was talking about how because somebody was like, "Charter a jet," and he was like, "Are you going to pay for that?" Right. But so he was getting some heat from even Twitter followers about how they thought that they were like, surely you can get back in time for the funeral, and he was like, well, he goes, if I had backed out of my agreement to do this charity fundraiser thing, he's like, which I would have gotten crap for that too from other people saying that like I left this charity event hanging. So like it was just kind of it was a bummer for him that he couldn't get to the funeral. Apparently his family went, his daughters and I guess his wife or whatever went to the funeral, but Shatner couldn't make it. He was getting some, but I thought Captain Jerk was kind of rough.
Yeah,
that people were calling him that.
It's pretty hurtful.
Yeah.
I was excited too about. I know that I can see the concern for it, but there was talk of Leonard Nimoy and then William Shatner going to be in the third movie.
Yeah, having cameos in the third
movie. And I
movie.
was like, actually, probably the only person on this planet that was excited about that. But
well, it depends on. It just depends on how the cameo's used, because I really liked Nimoy in the first Abrams Star Trek, but in the second one, I felt like it was a bit of a cop out.
Agreed.
So,
but it didn't ruin the movie.
No, it didn't ruin the movie. But if you throw in Shatner and Nimoy and obviously they're not going to have Nimoy in the third one. But if they were to throw in Shatner and Nimoy in the third one just to have them in the movie, if it was going to be another scene like that, I would rather it just not be in the movie. But if there is some sort of time travel element into the third movie as well, or something,
but the fact that they showed,
be interesting.
The fact that they showed Spock, and the fact that William Shatner's still alive, to be able to throw him into that trilogy, even if it is just to put William Shatner in there and give him a nod, I think would be really cool to kind of...
Sure. Because Shatner's 83 years old, too. I mean,
he does not look it either.
He doesn't.
He looks like he's in his 60s.
He's gained some weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't really look like he's 83 years old.
So, anyway, yeah, we'll miss Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Good actor, great director. He directed, obviously, Search for Spock and Voyage Home, but he also directed things like 3 Men and a Baby, if you didn't know that.
I don't think I've seen that.
You never seen 3 Men and a Baby with Tom Selleck and Steve Guttenberg and Ted Danson?
Watch it.
Well, you're missing out on a classic film.
Okay, I need to watch that then, apparently.
You should watch it just because it's directed by Leonard Nimoy.
Fair enough. Have you seen, if you haven't seen this, Google Leonard Nimoy, Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, I've seen his song that he recorded.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, too. I almost bought... The Star Trek magazine put out a tribute magazine to Leonard Nimoy. I looked at it yesterday when I was at the bookstore, and I almost got it, but it was $10, and I flipped through it, and I was like, this is cool, and I would like to have it, but I paid $10 for it, looked through it like once or twice, and then it would sit in a box or something, so I just decided not to get it. But yeah, definitely very sad when I heard that Leonard Nimoy passed away.
Yeah, that one was a big one for me. Same with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, Robin Williams was...
Well, yeah, that was
heartbreaking.
That was monumental how big that one hit our society. It's pretty crazy. That showed... That's one of the names where... And one of the things was his age.
Yeah.
But most celebrities, I don't think, would have that impact like Robin Williams. That was a rare case.
Yeah. So, I guess that about wraps it up for this episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I did want to talk about some upcoming episodes. John and I discussed about our plans for Star Wars. Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which actually I guess is not technically the title. The title is just Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Comes out in December of this year. So we've already talked about Star Wars Episode 1. And so what I think what we're going to do is, since there's 5 movies left and 10 months until the film premieres, we're going to talk about each Star Wars film every other month. So you can mark that on your calendars for Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. Hopefully we'll be a little bit more regular about putting out our episodes. It's our excuse every time.
I'm still in busy season, and
he's still in busy season, and just the fact that we are on opposite sides of the country, it makes it really difficult sometimes, because I have no idea what he's doing or how busy he is, and so I'll text him if he can record and he can't do it, and same with him to me. So it gets tough every now and again. So we appreciate you guys still, sticking with us and downloading and listening to us. I promise we're not going away. We're going to keep putting episodes out. They just might take some time every now and again. So I apologize for that. But I think in April we're going to do Star Wars Episode 2. So look forward to that. So yeah, and then I guess every other month after that we'll do episode 3.
No,
4,
I thought
5,
we were
6.
doing Star Wars next. Remember?
Oh, is that what we're gonna do? So okay, so it'll be March.
Yeah, because that way we have 6
In November,
and then our next episode. Oh wait, let me see. What's the date again?
It's December 16th, I think. It doesn't matter. We can do Star Wars episode 2 will be our next episode.
I think episode 6 will be the episode before episode 7.
Okay.
Unless you don't want to do that.
No, it doesn't bother me at all.
Okay.
And if you guys let us know what you would rather have us do. If you want to have some space in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, let us know. Otherwise, that's probably going to be our plan. But I guess our next episode will be Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So be on the lookout for that. That's about all I've got, I think. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Live long and prosper.